Check it out.
You can find God in the timber, find Jesus in the pines, find heaven out yonder in the river, and I thank God that he's mine. And if you like what you're hearing, well, you're already a fan, then go and tell all your friends and your mom and dad. Go spread the word to everybody you know. You can find God in the timber, find Jesus in the pines, find heaven out yonder in the river, and I thank God that he's mine. And if you like what you're hearing, well, you're already a fan, then go and tell all your friends and your mom and dad. Go spread the word to everybody you know. You can find God in the timber.
And welcome back, everybody, to another week of God in the Timber podcast. I want to thank y'all for joining along again this week. So just to go ahead and get this out there, this podcast was actually, I was listening to the Michael Waddell podcast, and he had the Hayden, Alabama podcast boys on there, Philip and Shane, and they brought this up. So I've already did a podcast about praying before, but it was a totally different scenario than what they were saying, and it had me thinking, and I do this a lot, but it made me start thinking of where did I get that from? So growing up, I had a lot of mentors growing up, in the hunting. So I never saw anybody pray before they went hunting. My mentors wasn't bad men. They taught me a lot. They taught me how to pack a bag the night before, how to make sure every piece of gear had a place so it's easy accessible, and how to check the wind, read the sign, and treat the woods with respect. So just to add to this on my thought process, my cousin was really bad about this, and I am terrible about this to this day. I'm not going to say terrible because it's a good thing to be prepared, but like the night before I go hunting, I will come in and I'll be like, okay, so tomorrow is supposed to be X amount of degrees, so I'm going to need my base layers. I'm going to need some wool socks. I'm going to need my hiking boots because I'm going in the woods for a pretty good ways. I need to make sure my saddle's packed up right, that it's easy to just walk in. I need to make sure my calls are there. I need to make sure I got snacks for the all-day sit and all this kind of stuff. Well, my cousin made me think like that. He was very, very, very senile when it comes to stuff like that. If he had a backpack, it could be full from where he's sitting from that hunt, and he would come in and pretty much empty that backpack out just to double-check stuff. And I'm still like that today. But to get back on it, so a lot of the way that I prepare for my hunts today come from that. Like, I need to know where my release is. Like, I'm going bow hunting Friday on some public land, so I need to know that my release is on my bow. If my release ain't on my wrist, it's on my bow. I need to make sure my broadheads are sharp. I need to make sure my broadheads are tight, and need to make sure I got some new cell cameras. Hopefully they'll be in by tomorrow. So I got to make sure I got batteries and all that. Like I said, it didn't come from books or YouTube or anything like that. It come from watching these men in my life, these mentors of mine while I was growing up hunting, do this stuff. But there's one thing that I do different than all of them. And I don't know exactly when this started. I wish I could put a finger on it when it started. But I pray before every hunt. If it's not before the hunt, it's during the hunt. And the other day, I was in a rush, and I straight up prayed right before the end of the hunt. And I will tell that little quick story after I finish this. But the Buzzard Roost saddles, the most adjustable, customizable, and downright most comfortable saddle system on the market. Whether you're hanging all day in the timber or if you're slipping in tight on a pressured buck's bed, Buzzard Roost gives you the freedom to hunt higher, lighter, and smarter. No more guessing, just rock solid comfort and confidence from the first light to the final minute. So if you're serious about taking your saddle game to the next level, Head on over to buzzardroosaddles.com today, and remember, control the comfort, you control the hunt. This has become a part of my pre-hunt ritual, and to me now is just as necessary to do this as it is for me to check the wind or to check my thermals or knock my arrow up, which goes into the story here shortly. And this is where the Michael Waddell podcast come into play. So Michael said, how many times have you prayed for a deer or something of that nature? And Brother Blink said, I've told God, what did you say? I told God I put an extra 25 in that offering plate if he let one walk by. Just good old funny. I've did this before, but now I don't necessarily pray for a deer. I'll start praying for safety, for my wife and my kids. Pray for clarity, to open my eyes up so I can see the woods better. I pray for peace, especially on the days when everything feels heavy. I pray for purpose, that my time in the woods or out on the water honors him and not just my own wants. And that's where I had a big issue for a long time with. I would get in there, and Michael says this, Lord, if it be your will, let a deer walk by. And I've done that so many times. But now I just pray for clarity. I want the clarity that God wants me to see that day while I'm sitting in the woods. Open my eyes up to see something in these woods that's just going to give me a calming peace. I pray to be a good steward of the animal, that if I do get the opportunity, that I make a clean, ethical shot, or be a steward of the land. If I see trash, pick it up, just to honor the land that He has given us. But most of all, I pray just to be thankful. Another day, another sunrise in the woods, another sunset in the woods, another chance to breathe in that morning air, and the gift of just being out in His creation. And that's where my mind went to on that podcast, listening to it. Is yes, I have pretty much, I guess you could say, bargained with Jesus on this. Jesus, if you let whatever the first deer you let walk out, if that's the one you want me to shoot at, that's the one I'll shoot at. And that's, as I've grown older, has gotten away from that. Don't get me wrong, there is sometimes where I'm like, God, please just let me see a deer. Especially in this, the South is hard to hunt as it is. But before we go into the Bible verses about prayer, we'll talk about what happened this past Saturday. So I got to hunt. I've only got to hunt a couple times since I got back from Missouri because of work. Well, I went hunting that morning and I saw a little spot with my gun. I went hunting with my gun. Well, I ended up selling my cameras because these cameras were giving me a fit and this guy wanted them, so I sold them. Well, one of them was still in the woods. The only way I could hunt that area was to hunt with my bow that day. So I take off with my bow, and I get up there, I get the camera down, put it in my backpack, climb up in the saddle, in my Buzzard Roost saddle, and I'm sitting there. Well, I start realizing I ain't prayed yet, so it's getting about, I guess, 4:30, and I just put my knees into the tree, and I start praying. I'm sitting there, and I'm not doing much, just watching. I'm not expecting to see much. I did have a big tall 8 on camera. Well, it hits about 450, and I look over, and here comes that big tall 8. Well, he gets it 40 yards, and he's stopped behind a tree, and I'm like, well, right now is my time to draw back. So I start drawing my bow tech back, and it pops up. My knock pops off my string, and it clicks, and he just stiffens up. Well, I reach down there, and I put my knot back on, and he takes off running. Well, I'm pretty confident with my bow shooting, and I shoot out 70, 80 yards, and this is a clear, wide open bottom. There's not a tree in sight on this bottom. And he gets out to 60 yards, and I was like, well, I can make that shot. So I take that HHA, and I dial her back to 60, pull back, settle my pin down. I was shaking like a leaf on a tree. I squeezed that old stand release off, and it literally, I see the knock flying, and it goes right underneath this deer, and he takes off running. So don't get me wrong. After that, like I would post, I might post the ending of the video on one of my socials, but I literally, all you see is, or all you hear is, because I knew I missed, which ended up having good news after that. My niece killed a big, tall Tennessee 8, so I got to go and recover that with them. But, yeah, I was pretty down and out that I just missed that, especially because I ain't shot at a buck on Alabama public land since 2022, whenever my dad passed, a year after the hunting season after my dad passed. So I'll be back after him Friday hard. But let's get into the Bible verses. There's a bunch of Bible verses that talks about praying, and we'll go into them like very short and very sweet, I guess you could say. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 through 18, pray without ceasing, and everything give thanks. So prayer is about your position in your heart, not the place. So it doesn't have to be fancy. If you just whisper a prayer at the base of your tree, and as long as it's honoring Him, then you're doing something. Psalms 121, 7 through 8, the Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in. And this is one of the ones that, this is one of the verses that I think about every time I pray. The woods are unpredictable. Nature is unpredictable. So I'm praying for protection over me walking into these woods and walking out of these woods. I live in an area with a bunch of hogs. Hogs are mean, and I just pray for that protection. I do carry my pistol on me, but sometimes I'm walking in at 4:30 in the morning with a headlamp. It's hard to see hogs with the headlamp, even if they're like, you shine their eyes, but you might only see one of them. There's 5 of them around you. You never know. Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. So think about it. Deer trails, boat ramps, river channels, they're all count as paths. When we invite God into that moment, He aligns our steps. And sometimes He aligns our heart more for what's going on than the actual hunt itself or the fishing itself. He aligns our heart into a position that we need to be with Him. And then Psalms 37:4, it's one of the, I guess this would be the transition verse where I used to pray for that deer, and now I pray for the protection. I pray for the clarity. I pray for the peace. It says, delight yourself in the Lord. So if you delight yourself in Him, the desires of your heart will shift from let me kill something to, Lord, let me just be grateful that I'm out here. So, yeah, y'all, I prepare my bags and stuff the way that I'll watch growing up. But I pray because the way that God has brought me up from where I was to where I am now. And there's times where I've prayed and I didn't see anything, but I walked out with more peace in my mind than I walked in with. So prayer changes the outdoorsman more than the outdoorsman changes the prayer, if that makes sense. So, like, praying changes me more than I can ever change anything around me. So I want to thank y'all for joining in for another week. Come back next week, and we will be discussing, hopefully have, I might get my wife to record one with me this weekend to post. So I hope y'all enjoy. Y'all have a blessed week.